All right, I took a couple days off and screwed around long enough. This morning, within the hour, this guy's going back to Montana, and I'm getting back to work. And once that truck leaves the shop, the very next thing I've got to pull in the shop isn't another semi. It's that 1995 Ford Bronco you see right there, with the snowplow that's up off the ground. As you can see, we've got snow everywhere. And about between 4 and 6 fresh inches of snow that I need to get up off the driveway. And I would have started on that yesterday afternoon, except for I found out that inconveniently enough, the fuel pump went out on this vehicle. At least that's what I assume it is. I went to turn it over. It wouldn't do anything. I know it's got spark because I can get it to run on starting fluid. If I spray starting fluid in it while I'm cranking on it, I can get it to start and run. So, you know, it's going to be either the fuel pump or the fuel pump relay or something like that. But it's a 1995 and it's probably got the original fuel pump. So yesterday was Friday. I went ahead and ran to town while I still could and got another fuel pump, got a fuel filter and a fuel relay for it. And today, as soon as this truck leaves here, I'm going to hook this 2002 Ford F-250 up to the front of it, and I'm going to get it pulled in the shop and get the fuel pump swapped out. Well, hey, Kevin. There's Kevin and Wheezy. And if there's a job to be done, you know Kevin's got to be in on it. So we'll get this truck pulled out, we'll get that Bronco pulled in, we'll get these parts swapped out, get everything here plowed, and then I'm going to get that 2005 Kenworth pulled in the shop or pulled out behind the shop so I can sandblast the chassis so we can get started on it. All right, Kevin, let's get started, buddy. And here's what it looked like before we got our hands on it. And here it is after. All right, we got the headache rack on it. These guys are taking off now, headed back to Montana. There they are, headed back. Done, and on to the next one. Good morning. I do have my work cut out for me. Very odd. I was pretty impressed. I'm gonna do what I always do on these trucks. And that just happens to be my thing, by the way. This paint job's probably 5-6 years old. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. And here he is leaving. It wasn't quite as fun as I was expecting. And that starts right about now. All right, got this beast towed into the shop. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get under the back end here and find out exactly what it's gonna entail to replace this fuel pump. Can't imagine it's gonna be fun. Well, all right, I got the fuel pump replaced. I also replaced the fuel filter. I held off on replacing the fuel pump relay because everything worked. Oh, hey, Kevin. Here to help again, buddy. And I got my driveway plowed while I was at it. And now today, I'm going to go ahead and get this 2005 or 2007, I'm not sure which, Kenworth. This one that you see behind me here. I'm gonna get it pulled out of the kind of snowy area where it's at. Get it pulled around back of the shop there. Get the chassis sandblasted so I can get it pulled in the shop so we can get started on it. But before I do that, I've got a little job I need to finish up here in the shop. I'm going to be getting these guys suspended up in the air with straps or heavy wire or something like that. I'm gonna get them sanded and I'm gonna get them painted in a flat black. They've been here for almost a month now. The owner's in no hurry, but I do need to get them done and out of the way. So that's one of the first things I'm going to be doing here today. I'm going to get this pile that I swept up cleaned up. I'm going to get these suspended in the air, get them sanded, get them primed, get them painted in flat black today. All right, now I've got both of my heavy duty adjustable ladders here with a extension ladder across the top. I have it strapped on just one side to keep it from tipping one way or another. And then I've got the exhaust held up with some straps. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and get these guys sanded, get them blown off, and get them in primer. All right, at this point, I've got them all sanded down in 150 grit. As you can see, I picked out where the dents are, of which there was more than a few. This is not a new exhaust system, as you can see. And they're just about set up. I don't want them to get completely dry. I just want them to be about 3/4 set up. That's when the sanding is the easiest. Then I'm going to take some 40 grit to them with just a small hand pad, sand them down. Once that's done, I'm going to put glazing over them. Then I'm going to sand that down. And once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and put a second coat of glazing to fill the pinholes from the first coat. Sand that down. And once that's done, I'm finally ready for primer. Well, all right, the bodywork's done, the glazing's done. I went over it with glazing twice, so all the pinholes are gone. It's all been blown off and wiped down. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get some primer on these guys and then get some paint on it. All right, now these pipes have sat here for well over an hour. It's time now to go ahead and get some paint on them. This paint that I'm shooting today is the same paint I shoot on everything else, only it's a special version of it that is semi-gloss or a satin. And then I'm going to put an additional flattening agent in it to make it about as flat as I possibly can, because the customer requested that it's flat black. I don't know how close I'm going to be able to get to actual flat black, but this is the first time I've shot this particular type of paint, and we'll just have to see how it goes. All right, I went ahead and let this cure out overnight. Here it is first thing the next morning. I'm getting ready to embark on this sandblasting the chassis on this 05 Kenworth. But before I do, I figured we would look these pipes over. The owner's going to show up here sometime this morning and get them. And there's really no place for me to set them until he does. You can't set these down literally anywhere. They have to hang here until he comes to get them. So I let him know yesterday. He said he'd be here today. But for right now, we'll go ahead and have a look. And as you can see, a distinct lack of high gloss. This is more of a satin finish. It's not flat, but it is definitely a solid satin finish. And again, that's what I was going for. I was going for at least satin. The flatter the better, because he requested that we paint him flat black. And I told him right up front, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that with my paint system. And I don't know of any professional paint systems that offer a flat black. And I'm sure there are. I'm sure there's plenty. I'm sure there's a lot of options in this world of professional automotive paint that is flat black. I see flat black vehicles out often, so I'm sure there is one. It's just that I don't know of any. And I checked with my paint guy, and he gave me the flattest option within the paint system that I shoot that he could find. And then he sold me a separate additive meant to flatten it even further, which I added to this. And honestly, I'm quite happy. I never expected it to be flat. I wanted it to be just a good solid satin, and that's what it is. And again, I told the owner that it probably wasn't going to be flat, and he's fine with that. So here's what we're looking at. As you can see, it's not a high gloss deal at all. It's not even gloss. Just a nice satin finish. All in all, I'm pretty pleased with it, and I know now that if I need to paint something in a flatter color, still using professional paint, I can. All the dents are gone, all those little dings are gone. Exhaust looks basically new again, so when he puts it on his truck, he'll have a fresh start with it. And now, I need to go get some sandblasting done. And now here out behind Flash Industrial Painting, I've got this 2005 Kenworth W900. And we're going to be completely repainting it the same colors that it is, except for we're going to be removing these fender mirrors and plugging off the holes. And other than that, it's going to be the exact same colors. And we're going to address some of these issues, like the paint coming off the door. It's coming off the other door too, but not quite as bad as it is on this door. Pretty typical on this production run of Kenworth to have the paint coming off the doors. Not 100% sure why, but a lot of them do it. And the chassis doesn't look as bad as some of them that we do. At a glance, it looks pretty doable, but it's going to need the exact same procedure as the rest of them. It's going to need to be taken down to bare metal, and the same thing as the rest of them, because when you start looking closely, you see things like this that need addressed. And same with back here. Stuff like this that needs addressed. And so when you start looking, you see that, and then the further back you go, like with all chassis and all parts of trucks and all trailers too, when the further back you go, the worse they get, because they collect the most moisture, the most salt, the most road issues. They get the most punishment toward the back. So as you can see, not in good shape at all. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get my compressor fired up, get my sand out. I have to use new sand on these because these PACCAR chassis they're double tough. I mean, they're coated like crap, but they're double tough if you want to get that paint off of them, or that powder coating or whatever it is that they put on here. It's whatever it is it's electrically introduced, and those kind of products don't hold up, but yet they're really tough to get off. So that's what we're going to be facing here today. I'm going to be using new sand. As you can see, Kevin's here. Hey, Kel. So I won't be missing anything, not with this extra set of eyes on it. And I'm going to go ahead, get this chassis sandblasted. That exhaust is going to be gone here within the hour or so. By the time this is done with the sandblasting, we'll have that exhaust gone in all likelihood. And then I'll back this in the shop so we can get started on it. Well, we made it back in the shop. It's first thing the next morning. We're going to go ahead and get started on this guy today. And what we're going to do is we're going to take all the parts off that we intend to take off. You know, the air cleaners, the visor, the exhaust, the handles, the mirrors, all that sort of stuff. We'll take these front mirrors off. We'll open the hood and see what we've got inside for damage, because, you know, I always fix that too. And we'll have a look in there and see what we've got. I really don't know what to expect just yet. I've seen about everything on these trucks. And then we'll... once we get it all torn apart, before we begin masking, we'll wipe everything down with thinner, just to get things like hydraulic oil messes and spills and stuff that have come over the back over the years, get them taken care of. But more importantly, when you have this sort of damage, clear coat coming off, and you can tell by the thickness of it that it's just one tiny little coat of clear. That's the fatal mistake of clear coat. Not only do you have to have a quality clear coat by a quality brand, but you have to put it on thick enough. And I can tell by glancing at this that this clear coat was never put on thick. It's paper thin. Paper's thicker than that. There's nothing to that. So this is one absolutely paper thin. I keep saying paper thin, but that'd be doing it a favor. That'd be actually flattering it. It's look how frail and thin that is. Saran wrap is thicker than that. Right here, look at this. And that's the common mistake everybody makes with base clear. They make it shiny, they walk away. You can't just make it shiny. You have to be there for the second and oftentimes third coat, or it's not going to be something that lasts. Which is why I shoot predominantly single stage urethane, because we shoot work trucks here. These are work trucks, and the owners want them to go out and look good and work for the rest of their lives and not have any more paint related maintenance. But this is paint related maintenance, to say the very least. This is not. See how shiny that still is? That's single stage. That's base clear. Same age, same wear and tear. They've been on the road the same time. Single stage, base clear. That's why I shoot single stage. But anyway, we'll go ahead, and since this has happened, the chances are just too high that one of the shops, because this is one of hundreds of trucks that these guys own, and it's going to an auction as soon as it leaves here. But they want to make them nice before they go to an auction, because they're not worth as much looking like this. So they fix them up. They put new tires on them front to back. They put new parts in them, including engines if they need it. These trucks, when they go to the auction, they have everything they need to go down the highway and run for many, maybe millions of miles. And that includes paint. So this truck could have belonged to one of their 13 terminals. And at one point in its history, somebody at that terminal may have tried to mistakenly buff this out. Because that's the first error that people tend to make when they're not paint educated, is when they start seeing their clear coat fade or come apart, they get the buffer out. And I don't want to take the chance that somebody at one of these terminals was instructed during their spare time to buff these fenders out at some point in time. And then we've got buffing compound ground into everything. And when we sand it, it grinds it in even further. Then you go to paint it and you get fish eyes. So to avoid all of that, we're just going to, like we do all these trucks, once it's all torn apart, we're going to wipe it all down with lacquer thinner before we even begin masking. Okay, we're getting the parts off of it. Got the air cleaners, got the exhaust, the handles, these lights and back off of it. One thing I noticed while I was back here is there's one rivet, two rivets, and that's all that's in this entire roof cap back here. Look how the paint's all bubbled up. This is a fiberglass roof cap, yet the paint's bubbled up in a way that suggests it almost looks like it's a steel roof cap with all the corrosion in between, but it's not. It's fiberglass. And somehow the paint's all bubbled up, and literally every single rivet except for this one and that one. And by the time I put an air hammer on these and start knocking them back in, this one will pop out too, I'll bet. Literally all of them but one or two across the entire back are gone. These all need to be knocked in, drilled out, and re-riveted. All right, and over here on this side, we've got the initial bodywork laid out. None of it in the center to speak of except for that strip right there. And on this side, all the initial bodywork is laid out but not sanded yet. All right, now at this point, I've got all the initial bodywork done here on the back and on the driver's side. Now here on the passenger side, I've got to remove all of this paint down here and get it feathered back to a point where it's reliable. And then I see I've got a little dent right there that I need to fix. And now here also today, I'm going to, like I said, get this bodywork done, but then I'm also going to get this clear coat stripped back to a reliable point, which means that most of it's going to come off of the top of the fender, and we're going to go back into the back of the fender to a point where it seems reliable, because it's not that it was never applied right, it's that the sun beat down on it and there wasn't enough clear coat on it, and it's probably not a high quality clear coat for all I know, but I don't know that. And then the sun beat down through it, and when the sun penetrates clear coat for any number of reasons, usually because it's too thin or it's not high quality or both, it will bake and affect the base coat and eventually make it powderized, put the slightest little layer of powder on the outside of it that's not even detectable to the eye, but it'll powderize the outside of that, and that's what ruins the adhesion, and that's when the clear starts coming off. So that's what's happened here. So that doesn't mean the whole thing needs stripped. It just needs stripped back to where the UV wasn't present nearly so often, you know, so the backside of the fender, it's not gonna have the sun beating on it almost ever, and so that's gonna be reliable clear. So the rest of this is going to get stripped off back to where I think it's reliable. I'm going to take out this line as well, because where they put the line and where I put the line are in the same spot. And so I'm going to take that line out as well. And we're going to get a bunch of this sanding and scratching done here today as well. Well, at this point, I've got all the body work done, the glazing work done. As you can see, we fixed that dent in the door. I went ahead and feathered this back to a point where it seems reliable. And now I'm going to go ahead and spray some wet sanding primer on the back, on the doors, and on the sides of the hood, and on the fenders. All right, well, here it is the next morning, and Brent and I are busy getting the rest of this stuff scratched, you know, like up on the roof and things like that, just little stuff like that. But then also I'm going to get these fenders sanded and get this chassis finished, getting the chassis prepped, blown off, get anything else that needs to be done to it. And that way I can prime that chassis today, prime these fenders today, and get these fenders shot blue today. And as you can see, I've already come through and done my final glazing here. Of course, it's not sanded yet, but the reason you see so much is because each one of those represents, like, you know, a pinhole. Like that tiny little crack right there. That tiny little pinhole right there. That tiny little crack right there. Those are all over in these sorts of fenders and fiberglass fenders of trucks that are anything over a couple years old. And a lot of times you just don't see them in the original paint. The cracks are just too fine for that. So you sand them down and you prime them. In this case with wet sanding primer. And then you look them over then, and that's when they'll show up, because oftentimes things that you spray on, primer, paint, wet sanding primer, doesn't really matter. Those don't really fill cracks or pinholes like people think they would. And so what they do is they build up around them. and then they make the cracks or pinholes or deficiencies more obvious. And when that happens, I come through and I, it's like here, a couple little cracks, fill them with glazing before I ever sand it, then sand the whole thing down, and then they're filled and you're done. So today, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be sanding these fenders, getting the chassis prepped, getting some of this other stuff prepped, and that way I can prime the chassis, not paint it, just prime it today, and get these fenders shot in blue today. All right, well at this point, fenders have both been thoroughly sanded, blown off. Chassis has been looked over thoroughly. A few little things like some remaining rust, flake and things like that have been knocked off with an air hammer. Wire wheeled underneath it so we get the rest of the rust off. And we've got it all blown off. Now at this point, I'm going to prime these fenders in a very similar gray to what they already are. And then I'm going to prime this chassis in black, and then I'm going to paint the fenders in metallic blue. Well, okay, gang, here it is, first thing the next morning. The shoot went pretty well yesterday. Now what I'm going to do here this morning is I'm going to segregate these fenders with 1/8" vinyl striping tape. And once that's done, we're going to go ahead and get these fenders masked up. Once that's done, we're going to go ahead and finish up all of the sanding and all of the remaining details that need to be done on the truck. And when we're done with that later on today, I'm going to go ahead and get the white on the truck and the black on the chassis. All right, I've got this side done. Brent's working on the other side, and as you can see, it's pretty loose looking, almost sloppy looking masking. And that's done on purpose. A lot of times I like my masking nice and tight, but I prefer them loose on these fenders because these fenders are shot in a single stage metallic paint. Single stage means that there's no clear coat. So I just shot them yesterday. It was early yesterday, and they had all day and all night to cure, so they're cured out enough to mask on. But if you go stringing stuff across them really tight, you are taking a chance of leaving slight impressions in the outside of the paint. Just very slight impressions. Impressions so slight that if it was a solid color, you could come through with a rag with a little bit of buffing compound on it, rub it for 5 seconds, and it's gone. But you can't buff at all on single stage metallic. That is the big downside to single stage metallic, is you can't buff on it. You can't do anything with it. So we mask a little bit more loose on these so it doesn't leave any impressions in the paint that we have to worry about later, because once it's shot, you have to set it and forget it. You can't do anything else with it. And here's how Brent's side turned out. As you can see, it's masked up differently entirely than my side is. But every one of us that works here is a top-notch masker, so I let everybody mask their own way. It always turns out good. It's just very seldom one side's the same as the other side. But one thing they do have in common is how loose it is. It has to be loose basically to the point of sloppy. That way I can be guaranteed, as I said, to not have any marks whatsoever in that single stage metallic paint. So that's why the masking looks the way it does. And now at this point, we're gonna go ahead and get everything sanded down here and get it ready for white paint and get the chassis finished ready for, well, it is mostly ready, it's already primed. Get the chassis in black, get the cab in white. All right, at this point, we're all done sanding, got everything all blown off. Now one of the last things I need to do before I go ahead and put primer on this guy is I need to get up there and drill out all those holes, 20 some holes, and put in all the rivets across the top of the back there. Then I'll scratch them, then I'll go ahead and prime over them. right, the primer's had some time to sit and cure out. It's all ready. Now I'm going to go ahead and get this chassis shot, get the truck shot, and get the chassis shot again, and then get out of here. Well, good morning, gang. Here it is first thing the next morning. This had all night to cure out. Now this morning, the first thing I'm going to do is unmask these fenders just in case something goes wrong. We already have the truck masked up if anything needs repainted. And if that goes well, Brett will be walking through the door here in about 15 minutes and we'll go ahead and start getting this guy all put back together here this morning. All right, well, that went pretty well. Now we're going to go ahead and gather up some parts, get this guy unmasked, get it all put back together here today. Well, all right. Looks like we got this guy all put back together. Let's go ahead and walk around it. Have us a look. Okay, here we have a 2005 Kenworth W900. When it showed up, it had mirrors on the fenders that were mounted to the fenders on the side of the hood. We got rid of those and all the evidence that they were ever there. The inside of the hood on this one wasn't busted up, so we didn't have to worry about that. The top of this was busted up. We went ahead and did a fiberglass repair there and fixed that. Did the fiberglass on the inside of the fenders and the hood to make sure that that's a permanent repair. There was a bunch of corrosion at the bottom of this door that actually was eating into the aluminum as well. Got rid of all that, filled all the pitting, got it all prepped, got it all wet sanded, and now it looks like there was never a single thing wrong with it. A few dents in the door as well. Chassis was in, rough shape. It needed sandblasted. It got sandblasted and triple coated. And as you saw, it also got triple primed. So it's going to be a long time before any rust starts peeking out on this guy again. Got it all back together. Got all the details. Even down under. Even got the hubs. Masked off the steps. Not only is that going to be better for wear and tear, but it's a decent look as well. Again, got all the details. The back was full of dents like they all are. And above the back window there, every one of those rivets except for one was missing. The head of the rivet was missing. So I punched them all in, drilled out all the holes, and put in all new rivets. Now the roof cap is good and secure again. There were some dings in the driver's door. Now it's in good shape. Got some good shine on it. Came out nice. This guy's gonna look good sitting there at the auction. Well, all right, looks like we got this guy banged out. Up next, what we got coming in is, I'm not really sure. I've spent the last week corresponding with a few people, telling them that they're next on the list if they want to get their truck in. And you can only do a couple people at a time on the list, because if 3 or 4 respond positively at once, then all of a sudden you're overbooked. So I always pick the top couple on the list and let them know we can get you in the next, week to 2 weeks, depending on how it goes, and try and give them some notice, sometimes 3 weeks notice. and then correspond with them back and forth and sometimes I'll get 10 down deep into the list because they're busy running that truck, or that truck's getting a motor put in it, or that truck's getting some welding done on it, or they sold the truck, or, so you just never know. And so right now I'm waiting to hear back from a couple people. And one of them I've been talking back and forth with from a state over. We might be doing his Peterbilt. We might be doing his pickup. We might be doing them both in a row. We might be doing one of these again for this same company next. It's hard to tell. We'll just have to wait and see who responds and how it all comes together. But either way, we're gonna have something in here in a few days, and we'll record it when we do. Hey, if you like this video, you should take the time to hit the like button. It's going to help me grow my channel. And if you want to see more of what goes on around here, you should check us out at Facebook at Flash Industrial Painting. And if you want to see more videos like this, or domestic auto body, or gardening, or art, or any of the many things we do around here, you might as well just take the time to hit the subscribe button while you're at it, because we always got something going on. We'll see you guys around.